What's up, guys? It's Casey Zogelman, aka the Fourth Sanderson Sister, coming at you with another Hocus Pocus theory video. In today's video, I'm going to share my take on the question that's been on everyone's minds since before Hocus Pocus 2 even came out. Who is Mama Sanderson? This is a doozy, and it makes so much sense that when I came up with it while writing a different script, I blew my own mind, so buckle up because I'm about to explain how these three came to be and how their lineage has one thing in common: Mother's Coven. Yes, you heard me right. Mother's Coven. We know the girls share one father, the town apothecary, whereas before the retcon in Hocus Pocus 2, they shared the same mother and three different fathers: a warlock, a bloodhound, and a village idiot. So the same concept can actually easily be applied to the maternal side, and it still makes a metric ton of sense that the girls would only be half-sisters, given how they are looked upon by the town as abnormal and strange. With Father Sanderson being well-versed in medicine and that involving special herbs and such, I can totally see him falling for witches as lovers, since they're also very in tune with nature. So we can gather that before the Sanderson sisters, the witches really causing trouble for Salem would be Mother and her coven. The way Mother reacts to Winifred after giving her a sniffin was more than just recognizing she has powers. She recognized her face and her features. That's why I think she started explaining everything about Salem's ties to magic. That's also why she let Sarah and Mary go too. She could have fought a lot harder than she did to suck out Sarah's soul if they were just ordinary kids. She saw her own coven mates in their faces because they were the mothers of Winifred, Mary, and Sarah. It would make sense since, back in those days, men could have multiple kids with multiple women for one reason or another, widowing being a big one. We also learned from Mother that several of her members were probably executed by witch hunters.
A witch is nothing without her coven.
Where is thy coven?
Long gone, I'm afraid. The world is not too fond of witches. Can't imagine why.
We also have no idea just how large her coven was. It could be anywhere from 3 to maybe even 10 or more. So with that little bit out of the way, here we go. Winifred's mother would obviously be the first woman that Father Sanderson would have relationships with. Father Sanderson, being the town apothecary, while being respected, would likely be looked at as unorthodox by some of the townspeople with how he makes his medicines and the clientele he keeps. Witches. Likely he wouldn't just sell medicine, but he'd also sell herbs or other odd things that help with ailments, and those things are what witches would use in their potions. And with those women coming and going from his establishment, I feel he'd be a little bit ostracized from Salem society and only called on when, it's absolutely necessary. Winnie's mother would most likely be higher ranked in the coven, just judging from Winifred's powers. She was likely, let's say, Mother's right hand, and was probably one of the stronger brewers of the coven, so it would make sense to send her for potion ingredients, as she'd be the one to pick out the best of the best. Frequent visits would have Father Sanderson getting to know her a little better. I think the traits passed on to Winnie would definitely consist of her red hair, her teeth, her lightning powers, and absolutely her attitude. With Father Sanderson, again, while respected, being looked at as weird, he'd feel a kinship with the odd-looking lady. Odds are Winnie's mom wouldn't give him the time of day at first, but then they'd have a courtship that Mother Witch would disapprove of because of how closely tied he was to the people of Salem. Well, if Winnie's attitude tells us anything about her mother, once she gets herself fixated on something, nothing is going to change her mind. Thus, Winifred's mother becomes the first Mrs. Sanderson, in a way, purely out of a "you can't tell me what to do" attitude. Let's say the couple is together, but not necessarily married for a year before baby Winifred comes along, because I can't see Winifred's mother being the one to be like, yeah, let's get married. This would come as a surprise, as odds are, Winnie's mother wouldn't be overly fond of children. Why? Because Mother makes it a point to take kids' lives for her own youth and beauty, so her coven would probably be of the same mindset.
How else does one stay young and ridiculously beautiful?
But baby Winifred is here now, and regardless of how her mother felt about the pregnancy, she was a mom. Now, I think this is where I can establish the start of Winifred's abandonment issues, because something tells me the first Mrs. Sanderson wouldn't stick around long after she was born. The pressure of raising something that she used to look like as a cow or a pig would probably get to her, and she'd leave without warning to go back to her coven and do what she did best, what she was used to. Now, let's just see how that would be viewed for a mother to abandon her baby in the 1600s. Oh, it would be hell, because the village knew everyone's business. Everyone's business was your neighbor's business back then, because these were small communities. I'm betting that Reverend Trask wasn't as well established yet in the community, but no doubt his family would be. So let's say Trask Sr. finds out about her plan to abandon her child and confronts her. We all know how Winifred handles Trask, so imagine a full-grown version of her going at another Trask. That would end in a display of power out of pure rage and, well, execution for witchcraft, leaving Father Sanderson to raise Winifred alone. This, of course, blots his name even further because he had relations with a witch, which resulted in a child. Mother, of course, would get wind of this and mourn the loss of one of her coven. She'd also make it perfectly clear to those remaining that it is dangerous and foolish to get involved with someone from Salem. But that's not going to stop the second lady from falling for Mr. Sanderson, Mary's mother. Now, she's a little bit different in the fact that she can shapeshift like Mother, but she would be able to change into the form of a dog. She's very affectionate and loyal to people she cares about, and once Winnie's mother has departed, she would likely become the errand witch. Not to say that Winnie's mother was an errand witch, she was just the best at choosing ingredients. But by making Mary's mother the one who does all of the errands, that's less time for her to get to know anybody, thus protecting her from the same fate. For the moment. When it comes to the apothecary, Mr. Sanderson would know that this new lady was in the same coven as his late lover. Winifred, of course, would be crawling around the shop by that point and make herself more known. Mary's mom would also know about their history and do her best to obey Mother's commands and keep away from him apart from the dealings in the shop. But that little girl would look awfully appetizing, and yet she wouldn't be able to bring herself to harm the child because she looked so much like her friend. Now, that's not going to stop her from trying. Let's say that one day while Father Sanderson was in his backyard, Winifred was crawling around playing. He turns his gaze away for a moment, and a dog rushes Winifred, who screams. Father whirls his head around and sees a big dog standing over his daughter, fangs bared, but unmoving. He runs and pulls her back, but he knows the eyes of that dog and sits down with Winifred on his lap. He'd say it was okay. He knows she's mad at how her friend was executed, and so was he. She takes a chance and changes back in front of him. He says he'd love her to maybe tell Winifred a story about her mother, but she leaves instead. The next time she visits the shop, though, she tells the toddler about an adventure she'd had with her mother. Thus begins a blossoming relationship between the two of them through a mutual love of Winnie's mother. Mary's mom would begin growing attached to Winifred as well, and, because of her loyalty, do what she could to keep her happy and safe. Again, this will lead to a confrontation with Mother, who grows angrier that her friend disobeyed because of what happened to Winnie's mom. However, like an abused dog, Mary's mom would go to the person less angry with her, Father Sanderson. So, those two become an item, and this time it does end in marriage. Around the time Winnie would turn 3 is when little Mary Sanderson would be born. They're a pretty happy family, with Father Sanderson running the shop, and Mama Sanderson rearing her 2 children. Winifred would be attached to her by then and start calling her mother. Obviously, mommy wasn't exactly a word back then, and baby Mary would just be a bundle of joy. The traits she'd receive from her mother would be the canine instincts, absolutely, her hair color, and her crooked smile. Now, Mary's mom would absolutely be using witchcraft around the house and showing her daughters how it's done, maybe even using it to entertain them. Father Sanderson would not mind since she wasn't showing them evil stuff, and often she liked playing with the kids in her dog form. However, wind of this would eventually reach the Trask family, and they'd come knocking. Father Sanderson would defend his wife valiantly, but in the end they'd blame his infatuation on magic and say they'll release him from the spell, and Mary's mother would also meet execution, leaving him a widower and mother witch, growing even angrier. Now the Coven is down 2 members, but they still needed stuff from the Apothecary. Maybe the third witch would be too dumb to fall in love with this guy. But sadly that is not the case, because Sarah's mom appears on the scene as the new errand witch. She's beautiful, but there's not a thought behind those eyes 9 times out of 10. That said, she couldn't help seeing how handsome he was, nor could she ignore how sweet his 2 little girls were. As she came back and forth for errands, they'd occasionally be flirting, with Sarah's mother reminding him she could not truly get involved with him as he had doomed the fates of 2 of her coven mates. He swore he didn't mean to, nor was he fully to blame. She understood, and before long, they'd be courting. She kept it a closely guarded secret, but Mother would eventually find out, considering how long her errands were taking. Filled with rage that Sarah's mother also fell for this man who'd been the catalyst for so much death, she'd banish her from the Coven, and the remaining witches would be in agreement. Despondent, Sarah's mother would return to her lover, and days later they'd be married. A couple of years pass by, and Winifred, around, let's say 5 now, has grown very fond of her new mother. She's pretty, she's funny, she dotes on her and Mary, and she has the singing voice of an angel. During year 2 of marriage, the Sandersons find out they will have a new baby on the way. The problem is, Mama Sanderson is very sick during most of her pregnancy. This does not stop her from loving on her 2 stepdaughters, whom she does love dearly. After all, they're the children of her closest friends. When it comes time for Mama Sanderson to give birth, she would struggle until Sarah Sanderson is born. She'd be small and a little sickly, but her beautiful blue eyes match her mother's perfectly. However, because of how difficult this pregnancy was for her, Mama Sanderson dies after birthing her daughter. Father Sanderson, holding his new baby daughter, sits his older girls down and, grief-stricken, explains that their stepmother is gone and that they must all care for Sarah in her stead. Winifred loved her stepmother so much, so she's far more saddened than the younger Mary, who wasn't really understanding death just yet. She's only 3. She looked at the small little baby and gave her first glare. It's because of the baby that her stepmother is gone. So that would kind of be where Winifred's resentment begins. That, and because of how much Sarah looks like her. Sarah would, of course, inherit her looks and her magical voice, because that would be the gifts passed on to her. So Winifred's actions, from that point, would kind of be a little resentful, due to the fact that Sarah was born and her mother died. Mother would no doubt catch wind of this and mourn the loss of yet another sister. Her actions from that point will be explained in another video. Which brings us all the way up to post-Father Sanderson's death and Winifred raising her 2 sisters. We see them driven out of Salem and they meet Mother Witch in the forest. Now that we know who their mothers were, let's look at that moment where they meet her again.
Thou look a thirsty child.
Let her go!
Why didst thou come into my woods?
Curse.
Thou art different from the other children I have met. But they were right to fear thee. Thy temper.
I do not have a temper.
Thy power. Thou art lucky to have each other. A witch is nothing without her coven.
She recognizes them. She sees her fellow witches in their faces. She can't bring herself to hurt them after realizing who they are. That's why she knows Winifred is a witch, not just because of her taking a big snoof of her aura. That just solidified the fact that she was born from magical blood. Passing on Book to Winifred, Mary, and Sarah was their birthright, as their mothers were part of her now long-gone coven. They would inherit Book now that they were returned to her. So that brings us to the Sanderson sisters as we know them. Ta-da! There you have it. That's my answer to the question of who is Mama Sanderson. It was 3 different women. All 3 were witches, and all 3 were part of Mother's Coven. This theory was an absolute blast to put together, so let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you're new to the channel, please remember to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't. It's free, it helps me, and what helps me helps you guys get more great content like this. By Friday, December 23rd, this coming Friday, I need you all to submit your suggestions for the best moments and the funniest moments of the 4th Sanderson sister in 2022. I'll be putting them together in a mega compilation that will go up on New Year's Eve. Details are in the community tab. Look for this picture and you'll find the post. If you haven't joined our Discord, may I recommend you do so because it's amazing. Our coven is amazing. Link is also in the About section of this channel. I might be doing a Black Flame Gaming stream on Friday night, December 23rd at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, but right now that's tentative because if you haven't been able to tell in this video, I'm losing my voice. I have to work all week, which involves reading stories to kids and doing a program, so I'll be using my voice a lot. We will see what happens. We'll see if I feel better by Friday, and we'll also see how busy I am because it is Christmas week, which reminds me, Merry Christmas, Merry Hocus Pocusmas to all you wonderful, wonderful witches and wizards. On this day last year, we had just hit 590 subscribers. We're at 1,400 subscribers a year later, and we're monetized. And this has just been a bonkers year, and I'm so happy that we managed to hit our 600 goal last year, and then we're almost at 1,500, you guys. I can't believe this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is the best Christmas present I could get, is your presence. Thank you for so much love and so much fun for the last year. It's been amazing, and I'm gonna continue on. We've got the Hocus Pocus 30th anniversary next year. I am absolutely still gonna be here talking about that stuff. Who knows what could happen next year? We could get a new DVD release next year. We could get a freaking announcement for a Hocus Pocus 3, which that is probably really up in the air right now, considering all of the changes that are happening over at Disney. So, I don't know. I don't know what's in store, but I know there's more in store on this channel. There's going to be more videos, there's going to be more theories, there's going to be more Black Flame Gaming. There's, hopefully, in the next year, I'll be able to get the Hocus Pocus cooking videos off the ground. That's just been, it's been on the back burner because it's a lot. But thank you guys for being here, for getting us to 1,400 subscribers, for helping me get this channel monetized, for helping me get popular enough that I got featured in a Hocus Pocus 2 promo video back in September. Like, that was nuts. This has been a nutty year, and I have you guys to think about it. You witches and wizards are an amazing community, and I love you guys so much, so please go join the Discord. Please go join the Discord. It's a very supportive coven. You guys are amazing. If you're a regular on this channel, please remember to drop a like and share your thoughts on this topic down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Casey Zolman, aka the 4th Sanderson sister, and I will see you witches and wizards later.